Chelsea. Welcome back to the Digital Art Elements through Illustrator video series. In this video, we're going to be talking about how to effectively use the pen tool and the gradient tool to make a very simple landscape with atmospheric perspective. So we are talking about space, and part of space is learning about how to make your image or your artwork have depth, and atmospheric perspective is one of the tools or one of the ways in which you can do that. So without further ado, let's jump in and talk about what we're going to do. Atmospheric perspective is used to help an artist show depth, like I mentioned before. And if you look up atmospheric perspective, you can get digital images and you can get photographs, but all of them will show you the same effect. As you move back, you get less detail and they get lighter. And you may notice that the ridge tops might be darker than the information toward the bottom. And that has to do with the placement of the sun, which is another way that you can show atmospheric perspective. So let's do this with our own artwork. Again, we're making this simplified. So let's jump in here and talk about where to start. Get your rectangle tool, and we're going to start it on our 1/2 inch guides on the outside. And it doesn't really matter how wide you make it specifically. You can make it as tall as you like. Just keep it inside the bounds of your page. And grab one of your value scales. If you wanted to, you could do one of the color ones. You could do black and white. I'll do blue. And I'm going to copy it and paste it onto my space page. Command C, and then click on my page here and do Command F, which will paste it in the same place. All right. To start out, I'm going to remove the stroke. And the reason why I'm going to remove the stroke is because I'm going to use something called the eyedropper. It's going to allow me to copy the color. And if I were to have the stroke on here, it would also copy the stroke. And I don't want a stroke. So starting with the main color, I'm going to click and then grab my eyedropper tool with I and click the color that I want. Now I could leave it like this and I could make my mountain ridges, but we're going to do that little effect where it gets lighter toward the bottom. So what I'm actually going to use is the gradient. So clicking on the gradient slider effectively turns on the gradient. And if I have my move tool selected, it should make the effect. And it is making the effect, but you can't see it because we have the stroke selected. So let's come over here and turn off the stroke again. And if we click on the fill color, now we should have the effect we want. But we don't want black and white. What we want is black and blue. So in the same way that we used the eyedropper to get the color we wanted before, I'm going to grab the black color, which I want to replace, and click the eyedropper and click the color that I want. Now I have that nice gradient from white to blue. And since I have the gradient tool selected, I can control the direction of the gradient as well. But before I can do that, I have to deselect the color picker eyedropper. Now I can click and drag to make my atmospheric perspective. You can make it as tall as you would like, and these are adjustable, so later you can come in and fix something if it doesn't look right. All right, now for the fun part, we're going to start adding mountains and ridges. So you might look for some inspiration to think about, oh, where are these going and how high do I want them? You can put as much or as little detail into these as you want. If you really wanted to, you could put trees in there. I'm going to make it pretty simple. So I'm grabbing my pen tool and I'm going to start with some ridges. With the pen tool, if you click and drag, of course, you will get curves. And using the skills that you have already learned in this tutorial, you can make some interesting type of shapes. But I think I want mine to be pretty rigid and keep it kind of simple. So I'm just going to make it kind of straight and then give it quite a few points as I go along. You'll notice that I have the gradient still chosen, and if that bothers you, then you can come over here and just turn it off. That way you can see what you're doing a little bit easier. Also, remember that this is adjustable. You can always come back in here and add and delete points with your pen tool, or adjust curves with your direct selection tool, which is the white arrow. Once you've finished, scroll down here and find the bottom of your rectangle. It should say intersect, and the same with the other side. And come up and connect your last point. Notice how I didn't start my first point on the edge. If I did that, then I would just be adding a point to my outside rectangle. So I started it just inside the bounds of my rectangle. All right, now to add the effect that I'm looking for, we'll turn this back on. You can turn it on to the gradient, but we need to change the color. So select your blue color, get your eyedropper, and you can do all of these colors if you want to, or you can skip colors to have less steps. I'm going to go every other color. So we did this one. I'm ready for this color. And you can see the slight change in color as it goes down. If I'm happy with the gradient, then I can move on to the next shape by switching to my pen tool and making another mountain ridge, or I could adjust it. Remember to uncheck the color picker, eyedropper, and then I can change this if I want to. But like I said, if I'm satisfied with it, then I can just go back to my pen tool and start again. I can turn off the fill so that I don't have the gradient. Of course, I have to deselect the mountain ridge, and then I can move forward and add a new mountain ridge. And I'm going to do this for the rest of the landscape, skipping colors as I go along, so I'll have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different sets of gradients by the time I'm finished. Also adjust the amount of light or dark that's in your gradient by dragging this little triangle, just like so. And if you notice over here, that changes this set over here as well. So the same thing is happening here as it is in your panel. And as I mentioned, when you get to the end, you can do some adjustments. So just to show that, I can come in here and get my gradient, and I could change the gradient completely, or I could just move the slider around if I feel like I need to. Of course, if you want to move to a different shape, then you need to click on that shape and switch back to the gradient tool. I can switch quickly to the Move tool by clicking V, and then click on the shape I want to change. And then the shortcut for the gradient is G. There we go. And if you notice, as I do this, it is helpful to see that I'm changing this middle diamond color at the ridge line or slightly below the ridge line, and that makes the ridge line pop out quite a bit more and helps with that atmospheric perspective feel. All right, and that finishes this tutorial on atmospheric perspective using space, and it also finishes this series on the digital art elements through Illustrator video tutorials. So I hope that you learned a lot as you're going through this, and I hope that you can use these skills as you move forward and do your own artwork. I hope you're having a very creative day, and I'll see you in the next series.